And my hi Facebook. Oh, and there's that. So welcome Facebook friends from my oh boy, from my dog. my dog is very, very excited about today's topic. Welcome everyone. Helen Archontou here, CEO of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and so happy to have some time with you today. As you may know, if you've been following, January is National Human Trafficking Prevention Month. Every year in 2010, excuse me one second. Every year since 2010, the president has dedicated the month of January to awareness. I'm sorry. To raise awareness around human trafficking and to educate the public about how to identify and prevent this crime of human trafficking. The U.S. Department of State raises awareness of human trafficking domestically and abroad throughout our U.S. embassies and our consulates. During this month, we try to raise awareness, celebrate the efforts of our foreign governments, our international organizations, our anti-trafficking entities, our law enforcement officials, our survivor advocates, our communities of faith, businesses, private citizens, our nonprofit organizations that are really focused on raising awareness about human trafficking. There's so many people that are working tirelessly every single day of the year. So this is really a discussion to have often and regularly, but January is definitely a month where we try to highlight these conversations. Again, to express our gratitude to those who are working in this field, at the same time to raise awareness. An agency that we know and that we work with at the YWCA and that I'm personally very committed to, that impacts those that are that work around human trafficking and support those that are impacted by sexual violence here at the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. I'm personally so proud to share more information on this topic of human trafficking. And today, to do it a little bit differently, we've hosted on YWCA so many various conversations related to this topic. But today, we're so grateful to have Gina Cavallo with us to help guide a conversation and share her experience. She is an author and founder and executive director of Paying It Forward Foundation, a New Jersey nonprofit that provides survivors of human trafficking with the access to emergency financial support and resources. As a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, physical abuse, and also human trafficking, Gina has become a respected leader and advocate within the anti-human trafficking movement. She is an active board member and consultant with the New Jersey Coalition Against Human Trafficking. She is frequently called to speak, not only from the place of her own personal traumatic experience, but also as an educator to various audiences, such as law enforcement, medical professional, first responders, universities, faith-based organizations, nonprofit organizations, government affairs agencies. She is also a state certified advocate for domestic violence and for sexual assault victims. As one of the first survivor leaders to address sex trafficking and exploitation in New Jersey, Gina's repeated expert testimony to the New Jersey legislature resulted in the passage of an education bill, the legislative progression of a vacatur expansion bill, and a hotline posting bill. She is a powerful advocate, and her legislative work really has changed the landscape of New Jersey for survivors of human trafficking. I personally have been working with her for years because of my work with the coalition. And I also can say that I've just watched her really embrace all that she has and all of the knowledge she has and utilize it in such a powerful, impactful way for our citizens of New Jersey and of our whole country. So grateful to have her here today to share a little bit about her story and the important work that she's doing. So with that, welcome, Gina, and thanks for your patience with my dog welcoming you. I know he's thrilled that you're here.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Thank you to the YWCA as well for sponsoring this and creating this platform so our voices are heard. That's right. My furry baby too. She's here, but I have her inside, so or she would have been barking along, making a new friend. Thank you for having me, though.
Well, I'm so grateful, that you could share your story. And we know, based on the statistics, there are many people walking around, with these stories, but it's not so easy to talk about, not so easy to talk about. And can you talk a little bit about, let's start, maybe at the beginning, about, what happened, in your life that brought you to this work and having a story to share.
Sure. Thank you, Helen. Well, people often ask, one of the common questions I get when I speak is, so tell us about what happened when this all started as being a victim of trafficking. But the truth is that when I chose to go to counseling, when this all surfaced, things that I had intentionally buried for decades, and that's another story how that all came about. But it didn't start being a victim of trafficking. For me, I believe without any doubt that this started with seeds that were planted as a child growing up. And, my parents, I know without a doubt that they loved me very much. And they worked hard. They were good parents. They both have passed on now. And I miss them very much. But they were very good parents. They were very involved in their community, and they worked hard. They provided a beautiful home for us. And what happened, though, that they did their best as they knew how from what they learned from their parents. So a lot of what happened to me was a culture thing. I was the youngest of large other siblings in our family, and the girls weren't of importance as the guys. Okay, the guys were much more valued in the family than the girls, and for me, it brought me much pain, because even though I knew that I was loved, there were many times I didn't feel it. I was witnessed a lot of domestic violence in our home. I was also part of being abused as a child, ridiculed, made fun of. I was the trouble person. I was the one that always got in trouble. It's always you, so the fingers were always pointed on me. And to me, it was like there was a lot of physical abuse too. I could remember one of my siblings running after me, and there wasn't anything I did. You couldn't even speak. It was like, if you spoke, that was like children should be seen and not heard. And I remember running because I didn't clean the house or make him breakfast when he wanted me to. And I remember running into a bathroom we had, and I locked the door, and he pushed the glass right through with his hand, and the glass shattered over me. And I was in the hospital, and I remember my mother clearly telling the staff that I closed the door too hard to the bathroom, and the glass broke, which is not what happened. And the reason I share that is because it was a defining moment for me, not at the time, but it was a defining moment because I remember that, and it was something that I was taught. You protect those who hurt you. And there were never any consequences for him, and I even asked, why did he hurt me? And she said, this was another defining moment. She said, he didn't hurt you. He loves you. So what I learned about love was a broken love. But in my world, Helen, it was like a normal. I don't know if that makes sense.
It
This was,
it does, and I appreciate you sharing, such, personal stories of growing up, and how your, later experience really ended up, that being foundational for that nest experience, to be built on top of it, because people don't often think about the layers,
it was
that are.
very foundational, and it affected me not only at home, because I was laughed at a lot. Oh, you're stupid, and you're this, and you're that. So even if anyone really loved me, I didn't feel the love, but I knew that they loved me. And this extended into my school. So in school, I failed. I had a pattern and a history of failing. And of course, that reinforced what everybody told me I was. And what I did, how I survived this pain, because there was so many other layers that happened at home, not only what I witnessed, but what I personally experienced. And at school, what I did was I won an award at school for being the funniest. And that's because I was hiding behind my pain. And so it's the reason I share this is because I don't feel that we can learn and grow by, I don't want to, not looking to harm anybody or, throw anybody under a bus, but these were my experiences, and this is what molded me. These were seeds that were planted that I feel that led me into being that vulnerable person. So, and then you have where hurt people, and, but what was so important to me, Helen, was that family is supposed to love you, right? They're supposed to protect you. They're supposed to encourage you and lift you. And I didn't feel that. I was told it, but it wasn't anything I connected with. All I knew is that I was a problem. I was always a problem. So I wanted to leave home. But not realizing that when I left home, that my wings were broken before I even had a chance to fly. Did I know that at the time? Absolutely not. And I began meeting the wrong people and people who pretended to be my friends. At that time, if you would have asked me, I thought that I knew everything. I thought that I knew how to navigate myself in the world, but I was on a mission. And my mission was that I was leaving home because I wanted to come back home because it was very important. I was determined to come back home and look at my family and say, look at me. I am a success. I want you to be proud of me. I want you to love me, because it was like really important that my family love me and accept me. I wanted to belong. I wanted them to be proud of me. And I couldn't get there. I couldn't get there. And, does anybody grow up and say, this is what I want to happen to me? This is what my dream is, to grow up and become a victim? And I ended up meeting the wrong people, and I ended up through it all. It was just about 2 years of meeting 4 people who were pimps, 1 girl, 3 men. And there was a lot of pain, a lot of torture, a lot of violence, pornography, threats, drugs. And there were so many layers, Helen. And it was an incredible miracle that I didn't even try anymore to escape, because the consequences were grave. But going through all of that, and then having the Lord open the door for me, and at that time, I didn't believe there was a God. Even though I was brought up Catholic, to me, it was more of going through the motion. But one day I was going out, and I was at a casino in Vegas. And most of the time, by the way, we don't know where we are as victims, because they don't want you to know where you are, unless there's a special event. And I was at a casino, and this guy asked me where I was from, and I wasn't supposed to say my real hometown, which, by the way, everything's taken from you, your identity, you're given a new name. And you're told what you're going to wear, everything. There's so much involved in that. But this guy told me that, oh, my girlfriend's from New Jersey. And long story short, I didn't believe him, and really I didn't even care. But he said, you want to meet her? Come up to my room. And I was like, no. I said, that's okay. He says, well, I'm going to go get her. And long story short, it was a girl I grew up with from my hometown. And it was because of her that she called my parents. And all I remember her is looking at me and saying, what the heck happened to you? And I don't even recollect at that time, what I look like, and didn't even care to remember, except for, other ways that I do, recall that you just don't want to. But I was on a plane home that night. And what I found interesting is that even though I didn't even have any documentation on me or any identity, that at that time I was able to get on a plane and I came home. But when I came home, it wasn't something that, you talk about, you just move on. Nor did I honestly at that time believe that I was a victim, because it's very hard for victims, even some survivors, to identify that we are victims, because we're very good at self-blaming, that everything everyone told us in our life is my fault. I'm a failure because it was my fault. I'm stupid. It's my fault. I caused trouble. It was my fault. So I got beat up. It was my fault. I had a gun put to my head, or I was cut by a knife. That was my fault. I deserved it. So there was so much. And what comes with that, Helen, is a lot of shame and fear that's crippling. It just cripples you. And it also sabotages relationships, which is a whole nother thing. I mean, it ended my marriage, because I eventually met someone through social services department, and we dated for quite a while, and he wanted to get married. And I chose to tell him all about my past. And I says, we're supposed to get married. He needs to know. I want him to know. And he still wanted to marry me. And long story short, I'll never forget, we were just a few months into our marriage, and it was Thanksgiving time. And we had a pretty bad argument. And he says, okay. And he got abusive with me. And I didn't recognize the signs, but the pattern from my past kept bringing me to those types of relationships that I wasn't aware of at the time. But what rattled me more than our argument was the abusiveness, because it was the first time I saw that with him. But he told me, he says, you're going to get ready. We're going to my parents for Thanksgiving. And I says, I can't go. I don't want to go. And he came home that evening and he said, I'm sorry. He says, but I have to divorce you. And my whole world shattered. And he told me he was so angry at me from not going to his parents for Thanksgiving that he told his parents about my past. And since he was the only son, they told him if he didn't divorce me, that they would disown him. And that was another defining moment for me, because, what I learned from that was that, there's no safe place. I can't talk about what happened to me, nevertheless, heal. I never went for healing. And so he divorced me. He wasn't going to be disowned by his family. In fact, his father was waiting for him. He followed him home to make sure that he left me that night. And it was hard. It was hard. So my life spiraled down again. I went to what was familiar to me, which was drugs and alcohol. I got a job as a bartender, and my customers knew the only thing I wanted. They would shake my hand before they left, because they would be putting drugs in my hand. And I didn't have any choice of drugs. I just didn't want to live. I didn't care what they gave me. So I was on this path of drinking and doing drugs. until my life got to the rock bottom and I wanted help. I did ask my parents for help, but it was difficult for them because they didn't know how to help me, you know, and there weren't that many resources until I went and searched and found this place in Morristown at the time called Center for Addictive Illnesses, CAI. And it was a 28-day program. They kept me for 6 months because I had arrests behind me from drinking while intoxicated and resisting arrest. And so where that led me was to a home after the 6 months, to Mrs. Wilson's halfway house in Morristown, which this was a transformation for me, life-changing. And, you know, I began speaking to at AA meetings and NA meetings, and my life turned around. I overcame my drugs and alcohol. But one thing was interesting, Helen, is that I never, when you have to do an inventory when you're in those programs, but I never, ever went back to what happened in the past. I kept that bolted really deep in my past. And so I did share a little bit with my sister about it way back, but that was the extent of it. And my life just moved forward with that. And it wasn't until 2015 when I ended up, you know, facing my past. And it was through a program. My son-in-law, who was launching a new ministry at our church, at Emergence Church in Totowa, New Jersey, and I wanted to help my son-in-law make coffee, and he says, "Look, we're starting a new ministry called Celebrate Recovery. It's also known as Redemption Recovery." And he says, "Would you like to, you know, be a part of that and take this study? It's a year commitment, 3 books." And I got really defensive. And I said, "Are you trying to tell me something is wrong with me? You know, I don't need it. I don't have a drug or alcohol problem." But what I learned, Helen, it wasn't just for drugs and alcohol. It was for people who struggle with codependency, depression, anxiety, you know, pornography, loneliness. It doesn't matter what it is. Everybody struggles with something. So I went in with a little attitude, but I figured I have nothing to lose. I'm going to try it. And just a couple months into the program, all this stuff was surfacing from my past. It was like the floodgates opened, and it was terrifying. You know, I didn't know what to do with it, you know, and I stopped going. You know, I figured that would be a way to control my past from surfacing. And what I learned was that I had a leader. Her name was Marianne, who and my son-in-law too, both Marianne and Phil, they were so instrumental in encouraging me to come back, which I did. But I also knew I needed counseling, you know, and I had great counseling. I asked the counselor to help me take the pieces of my this puzzle of my life. And it wasn't so much of what others did to me. It was more important for me to look in myself, my inventory. So it was life-changing. It really was. You know, what I learned is that if you don't heal from what hurt you in your life, you will bleed on others who didn't cut you. And so it was, I had to make a decision. I came to a crossroad where, you know, am I going to let this control me? You know, I need to either put this all down, lay it all out, you know, trust God and know that, you know, He will take my mess. And, you know, today he's taken my mess, and not even anything that I had planned, and He turned it into a message. And, you know, counseling was tremendous. And it's not like I'm all better and I arrived. It's a journey. Healing is a process, but I have the tools and I know what to do. And, you know, doors just began to open. This was not part of my plan at all, what I'm doing today, and where I was brought through these doors that opened. It doesn't matter to me what those who hurt me have done to me. It doesn't matter that I didn't receive apologies. It doesn't matter that still today, there's family that doesn't accept me, that they can't hurt me anymore physically or any other way. I can't be hurt from any perpetrators, sexually, threats, pornography, whatever it is, because I'm enough. I know my value and I know my worth. And I think one of the hardest things for me was stop putting the word of people before the word of God. For me, I kept putting people before him, and that's who I believe in. It's because of God that I am here today, that I am speaking to you, that he brought me through all these messes. And it doesn't matter with others what happened. It's like, people have to fix people.
Yes. And I have to say, we're so grateful that you're here today to share your story. And, our viewers are commenting on this as well. We have, Kate, who I know we both have a tremendous amount of respect for from the coalition, and Kathy Mira, and Shania, just everyone just thanking you for being so brave and sharing your story. And I think, you in such a simple way, you've outlined for those of us who may not be as connected to this issue, but, need to learn and understand about it, that, none of this happens in a vacuum, that our lives are complicated, and that, for you, you had this, for lack of better word, snowball effect of, hurts and loss in your life, that brought you to this moment, that, and being able to come to where you are today with it, and create so much impact is amazing. I want to ask you, there's so many survivors out there, we know, because of the statistics, that are living, a story that, has, many pieces of yours attached to it. And I'm welling up with tears as you're welling up with tears telling your story. I'm welling up with tears listening, to you as well, and feeling, for you. But you're sharing your story, even though it's painful. And obviously you're still going through a healing process daily, from what you've experienced. Can you talk a little bit, if there's any survivors that are out there, that are still trying to figure out what to do with their story? Can you speak a little bit to them, and about, how and, why you do share it and have been sharing it, with others?
Sure. Well, for me, I mean, because of what was given to me, it's something that I was called to do, and it's something that I feel driven to do. And I feel that in order for anyone to heal, we heal by being able to use our voice and talking about it. For a lifetime, I was being controlled. I was being told not to talk. You don't talk about any of this. And it wasn't just family, what happens in your home. That's very common for family to say, don't tell anybody what happened here today, but it's, the perpetrators, they're so, the threats, Helen, are so real. They're so violent. And, when I look back to see what happened to me, what was done to me physically, emotionally, to my mind, body, and soul, the trauma is just unbelievable. It's unbelievable that I am even here sitting and talking about it today when I look back. And, I remember not knowing days from nights. It was like my body, but inside of me I was just a shell. There was nothing in me. Everything was taken from me. Everything, my mind, my body, you don't talk. You're told what to wear. You're told how to talk, what to say, what not to say. It was all lie. You're just nothing but commodity. So, and then you're at the end of it, because of the brainwashing, you're just convinced, like I said earlier, that it is your fault. So you're self-blaming. So we never identify as victims or survivors as the victim, and we're too busy protecting those who hurt us. And so for me to start trusting my instincts and use my judgment and not empower other people to make decisions for my life because I was blessed with my own instincts. That's huge. I'm doing it today. But I also find that sometimes the truth, people will continue to punish you. So if they can't punish you by taking one of your body parts away or your mind, they'll punish you by the silent treatment, which is another form of abuse. But I speak my truth today because I want others to have and experience what I have. I have my freedom. I have God. I have my freedom, my truth, my identity. And all of them, one is just as important as the other. I am free. I am no longer shackled by shame, by fear, by the lies. And it's a process, though, because being so programmed when seeds are planted at such a young age, um, that person takes those seeds that are planted and you believe what you're told you are and what you're not. And so it's all kinds of rewiring that you constantly have to work on for me. And so I encourage people, like, for instance, there's a place which I highly encourage and recommend, and they're all over the states of New Jersey, which is Celebrate Recovery, also known as Redemption Recovery. And they provide free weekly support. It's ongoing support. And there's counseling provided, but most of all, Helen, it's a safe place. It's a safe place for victims and survivors to go to. And one of the things I appreciated about them, because many victims and survivors experience that there's no place safe, there's no one they can talk to, because there's so many layers associated with what happened to us. And this is a safe place. They take it very serious to make sure that people respect people's confidentiality. So I speak, and I will continue using my voice and speak. And I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid anymore. No one can hurt me. They can try, but as long as I keep focused on, and stay true to myself and what the message should be, which is we need to continue talking about this. We need to continue to educate, and education is the number one factor.
And that's obviously our goal, part of our goal with this conversation today. I'm so struck by listening to you, and you just being so clear on your power and, the power that you have. And I know I'm very clear on the power that you have, because I've seen what you've done with your work with the New Jersey Coalition Against Human Trafficking. And I've seen how you've used your story and your growth journey that you have been on to not only help other survivors, individually, one-on-one, because I know you always have your, hand out and your ear open, to listen and be there individually, but collectively, the work that you've done legislatively, the testifying, and representing the coalition and working so closely with Kate, our executive director of the coalition, and the board, and which I know you're a very active member of the board, but really, taking this to a whole nother place, not only just your own personal story, but about really impacting and affecting change. And we've had some significant wins around this issue just in the last month, thanks to you and the work that you've done. Could you speak a little bit about that, and how you've transitioned your personal story into your work with the coalition, and some of the important legislation that we've just seen move, as I said, just in the last week or two, some great impact that, we can say that came from you and your story sharing.
Yeah, it was huge. Thank you, Helen. Well, my work with first of all, I do want to say that my testimony and my involvement with the legislators and my testimony, I was just a piece of it. I was just a part of that. I mean, there were so many people that had their hands on this that made this happen. So many, the New Jersey Coalition, as you know, Helen, they're just amazing people to walk alongside of. And for me to have a part of walking alongside of these compassionate, committed individuals, we learned from each other, So what happened with legislators and this bill for vacatur bill for survivors where they could be free and they don't have to live with that criminal background anymore? That is huge. That is huge because, not only do victims become victims, but the perpetrators are the ones that usually get away with what happened. And the victims are the ones that end up moving on with their lives. But how are we moving on with our lives, when we have these records behind us? It's like a life sentence that we're serving. And meanwhile, they're out there still getting away with doing what they're doing and committing these crimes. So the people within the coalition, I credit it all to them. I've done my part, but, without them, this would not have happened. There have been just so many intricate people that I have so much respect for. And are they all survivors? Of course not. But they're powerful people that are experts, and without them, this would not clearly have happened. And I have so much respect for Kate Lee. She's just an amazing, along with other individuals, Danny Papo in our coalition and so many others. And we have a lot more work to do, and we're going to do it. We're one of the first organizations in the state of New Jersey that are addressing human trafficking. We are a survivor-informed organization. I should say survivor-inclusive, because everything they do with survivors at the head that are a part of it, working alongside of non-survivors. We're also diverse. We address the LGBTQ communities. We address the boys. We can't leave out boys. There's many traffickers that are women where boys are being victimized. So we can't leave that out. So there's so much that we bring to the table, but this would not be possible with just me. It's not. The New Jersey Coalition has allowed me and given me the green light and the support and the encouragement to bring many survivors to the table, because I don't know everything. I could share with you my experience, my knowledge, my story, my testament, but every survivor, we all have that thread that we all have. And I have brothers and sisters throughout the state that we work together, we collaborate, because collaboration is important. And the New Jersey Coalition supports all of that. And just so, we have a resource directory that's a huge one that we just celebrated our 10th anniversary. There's so much, Helen, with the New Jersey Coalition. And it's a non-for-profit. We don't do this with grants and government funding. This is all done with the goodness of people's hearts that are committed to supporting, so we can continue. I'd like to see another bill to work on, which will follow Texas and Arizona, which will make buying and selling sex a felony in the state of New Jersey. I believe, Helen, that we need to stop shaming and naming victims and survivors, and we need to name and shame the buyers and the sellers. They're the ones that are getting away with this, and we're commodities. We need to educate the kids. So if they're not educated, you don't want the wrong people educating your kids.
Absolutely not. And I just want to echo what you said about the coalition. It absolutely is a very, very talented team, right? Starting with the leadership, of the organization, both the leadership of the board with Danny and Kate at the helm of the organization. But that, there are so many committed members that work alongside with survivors like yourself, to be able to make sure that, we are really making headway on impacting this issue. And there is so much more work to do. Um, Absolute congratulations on the great work that has been done to date. And I just want to lift up for our viewers again, just to remember, and this is also important reason to be connected to the coalition. We have their link here, so you can go to their website, follow them on social media, be part of the advocacy team, because as Gina sharing from her personal experience so bravely, and so grateful to her for doing that. Very often it's the survivors that are living with the impact of what's happened here, and the buyers and the sellers are not. They get away with it, and we've taken a very strong line, thanks to our leadership here in New Jersey. Assemblywoman Huddle has been such a champion. Senator Weinberg has been such a champion. Senator Kane has been such a champion. We've had so many wonderful champions, and honored so many of them, through the coalition as well, for the work that they're doing, and so grateful for our legislators and that are learning more and more about this issue each day, and understanding the importance and the urgency in addressing the pieces now that still need their support and to come. So there's work for us all to do here, and important to support the work. As Gina shared, this is a nonprofit organization like the YW, and we really all survive because of the support of volunteers, the support of donations, corporate relationships, that are able to be provided. So please embrace the work of the coalition, and understand that, this is happening all around us here in New Jersey. This is not, as I always say, it's not a problem that's happening, overseas only. It's happening right here in our right around you in your communities. And, the more that you learn about it through opportunities like this, the more that you will be able to help impact and affect change, and help us, eradicate what's happening. Gina, before we leave each other, I mean, I could talk with you for hours, of course, but before we leave each other, I want to, I'm glad we got to talking about, I'm so grateful you shared your story. I'm glad we got to talk about and speak to some, directly to some survivors, through your voice, about, how, you've evolved in your journey. What I'd like to, I'm glad we got to talk about the coalition, but, you are, and I've had the honor of watching you evolve, but you are also ever evolving in your journey here. I know you have a book, that you're working on, and I want to make sure that we talk about that, because I think that's such an exciting next chapter for you personally, and for those of us, that really will be impacted by that. So can you tell us a little bit about that before we leave each other?
Sure. Well, it was, I think it was COVID when it started. Did COVID start in 2020, I think? And it was then that I felt it placed on my heart to write a book. But, I always struggled with learning disabilities and things of that nature. And I was sharing with a couple close people, and they said, it's not a good time, and you can't write a book. It's too expensive. And also there's businesses closing down. Well, you know what? God had other plans for me, because I even believed that too, that it was just far-fetched. And I started, exploring that, and it was very expensive. But I started like journaling anyway, and I began writing. And, I knew these people from our church, the Davises, Rob Davis, and Julie, his wife, and they were so instrumental in encouraging. That goes back again to loving people, encouraging people. And through some resources that he had, he went above and beyond and connected me with this amazing individual. And next thing you know, the door opened. In fact, it's still so surreal. We worked on a proposal, and it was just maybe last year or 6, 7 months ago, we worked on a proposal, submitted it to a bunch of publishing companies, and there were a publishing company turned around and wanted to, sign me up. So we did sign a contract, and I'm working to finish the book and be released. And I still can't believe it, Helen. It's so surreal that I'm actually have a book coming out. So I will keep you posted.
Yeah, it's such an exciting, next chapter. And honestly, just listening, and I've heard, I know a little bit about your story, obviously before today, but listening to you share it, it makes sense that this is the next phase of where you're at to be able to share it. And, there's the impact that you've had when you work with the coalition, the impact that the coalition has been having during its tenure. And, both you and the coalition have so much more work to do, and so much more to share, and so many more people to help, and so much more change to do. I'm happy to be along for the journey and support it as well. And as we are at the YWCA Northern New Jersey, and I am personally also committed, but it's very exciting. And I am grateful that you continue to be open to sharing and evolving, on this journey that you're living on and through.
Thank you, Helen. Can I say one more thing? I'm not sure how much time we have, but I'd like to, really, really emphasize on the viewers to educate your kids. There's different educational material, and the New Jersey Coalition can provide it. We provide free HT 101 materials, and we go to schools, we go to churches, we go to healthcare centers, all over. We're everywhere. And we have a wonderful speakers bureau, and it's so important. I mean, I go to different schools, whether they're middle school, universities, high schools, and it's so important because many of these kids, their feedback is, I didn't know that this happens. We thought this just happened in the movies. And it's so important that you have conversation with your kids. Please don't have the attitudes like, oh, well, this doesn't happen to us. We don't have this problem. We do have this problem. It's right here in our backyards. And it's so important that your kids know and are aware of this topic just as much as it's important as they learn about a second language and they learn about math and science. We have to keep talking about this. It's so important. And also just love your kids, let them know that they can come to you with anything, that you're going to meet them where they're at, because if they can't come to you, they'll go to somebody else. And just let them know how much they're loved, how much they're accepted, and how much they belong. And they will come to you for everything. They won't be vulnerable. Their chances of being vulnerable would be very nil. So that's really important that I wanted to share that, Helen.
Well, that's such a powerful place to transition us to closing. And, just to reinforce what Gina had said, and, as I said, we have the link here so that you can connect to the New Jersey Coalition Against Human Trafficking. And I, really encourage you to go to their website. We've talked a lot about some of the legislative successes, most recently, and the hard work that they've done. And I know Kate here is noting such amazing partners that they have, such as the Volunteer Lawyers for Justice. But the reality of it is the organization and the resources connected to it are great. There are programs for schools, there's programs for Girl Scout troops, there's programs for, there's opportunities for individuals to learn and get involved. There's a very healthy internship program to help, support the next generation of professionals to keep, working and doing this work. There's opportunities to volunteer on so many of the, impactful committees connected to the work of the coalition. So there's so much to learn, and obviously also ways that you can make a donation, whether it's, through dollars or whether it's gift cards. So there's a wonderful program to provide gift cards so that they can go to survivors to help them. This is a very intricate and layered, issue, and you can definitely get a good understanding of it by going to the coalition, getting involved and following them, and connecting to the stories like Gina's, that the coalition provides this platform to share. And again, we're talking about this, and we always make a point to talk about it in January. But as our YWTV viewers know, we talk about it throughout the year, because this is not an issue that just happens in January. As Gina shared, and I shared, this is going on around us every single day. And unless we are aware and know what to look for, aware and know how to support our children and the adults around us, who may be impacted, we will not make headway and on this. It needs to be a collective issue. So again, the links are here. Please connect. Please think about how you can get involved and what you can do. One of the ways that you can get involved is by helping elevate this conversation. You can share this broadcast on your Facebook page. You can copy and paste it and share it with someone in your life. But it's a wonderful opportunity for you to help people know and learn and understand. And so grateful that Gina came today to share her story, and give us this time together so that we could really not only understand it in words, but we all learn through stories, and that's where there's so much to connect to, human to human. And so grateful that Gina has shared with us today. Gina, thank you again.
Thank you so much, Helen. Thank you for having this platform.
And thanks to the coalition and all the leaders, the staff, the volunteers, and all who support, and I'll say our work because I'm a member there as well, in addition to the YW. And with that, we wish everyone a wonderful day. Stay safe. We hope you join us tomorrow, Thursdays, when YWTV shares the mic now with Black women in our community to elevate their stories. And we have another great conversation for you. So we look forward to seeing you then. Be well. Take care, everyone. Bye, Gina.
Thank you, Helen. Bye.